So thank you to everybody for joining. I'm just going to jump right in. I'm very excited. Such a fun topic. Just a quick disclaimer that this presentation, of course, is for informational purposes only, so it doesn't constitute the practice of medicine or, in the case of tonight, aromatherapy. Anything written or stated here or materials linked from here, and you have a handout. And questions answered at the end are at the user's own risk. All suggested uses, doses, and cautions for products can be found on the products themselves. And if you don't have the products, you can always look at nowfoods.ca to find more information. So before I get to the perfumes, I want to just give you a little introduction to Now, as you may not be familiar with our great family-owned company. Now is currently, I should update this, 53 years old, and we're family-owned now in the fourth generation, which is very unusual and quite amazing. We have our own labs, actually 8 labs, kind of like CSI level. We do, on average, 16,000 quality tests every month, which is, again, just a really unusual for any company. Just as one example, we can test in-house for over 500 pesticides. We have had 20 years of an A grade for good manufacturing practices, which is just the highest grade you can get. But more impressive than that is for the first 8 years, we were audited by choice. So we actually were behind kind of an initial push for governments to have these sort of things monitored and standardized. It was very important to us. And we have a huge staff that's involved in scientific formulations. I should add on here myself, but MDs and PhDs and nutritionists and so on that go into making sure that all of our products are high quality. All right, so on to the perfumes. I'm going to do the history of perfumes in 1 minute because nobody needs to be bored with a long history, but there's just a few cool things that I'd like to say. Firstly, it's just human nature that we're drawn towards smells, whether it's a rose or our morning coffee. Of course, sometimes we're repelled by smells, but in the case of tonight, hopefully we're talking about being drawn to them and enjoying them. And for that, the history of essential oils as aromatherapy to smell goes way back and across many civilizations, as you can see here, going back as far as at least 2000 BC, as far as we know. One example that you'll all know of, because Christmas is coming up for those who celebrate, but even if you don't, you know that the 3 wise men brought frankincense and myrrh to baby Jesus. So they were valued back then, and they're still valued today. If you're interested in knowing, I find this fascinating. The very original kind of first perfume that was sold was amber. And amber came either from the resin of trees or from the bile duct of the sperm whale. So they would gather it actually after the whale sort of vomited out this bile. Doesn't sound great, but in any case, at this point in time, the amber perfume, as you can imagine, was very expensive and was pretty much for royalty only. Then came, when it became apparent that not everybody could afford this amber perfume and those sort of ones, we had sort of more perfumes for the masses and synthetic perfumes coming out. And of course, prestige perfumes have been a big part of that. I've never actually personally bought one. And as part of that, I'm talking about perfumes tonight, but really it's broader than that. There's different kinds of body scents, and here's perfume, but we also have Eau de Cologne and aftershave and the Eau de Toilette and the splash here. And if you look, you don't have to get bogged down in the details, but I will refer to this. They're all exactly the same ingredients. All of them have a fragrance oil, usually going to be synthetic if it's a commercial kind of perfume. They all have this fragrance oil, which we would replace tonight with an essential oil. And they do tend to have various chemicals to maybe fix the smell. They all have alcohol in them and water. And the difference is just the ratio. So the classic kind of perfume has um, quite a high percentage of that fragrance oil, up to 25%. So it's got a lot of the fragrance component. Whereas in contrast, you can look at aftershave here just has between 1 and 3% fragrance oil. So even though I'm going to be talking about making, DIY our own perfumes, we may not always really make these kind of high percentages because that can be strong. Um, so we're going to make variations of that, which is again really the same thing. I'm going to get into all the details, so be a little bit patient as I go through. I'll kind of slowly unfold everything you need to know. There's one reason why you might not want to use prestige perfumes, and that is that you're paying a lot of money for the box and the display and maybe just the prestige, but the ingredients on average just cost $1 to $2, the actual ingredients in that bottle, less than 1% of the retail cost. So we're paying for all of these other things, kind of like the hype. And consumers like yourself are concerned with what is in your perfume. That's probably one reason that you're here tonight. So, in a lab test commissioned by the Campaign for Safe Cosmetics, it was found that there were 38 unlabeled chemicals within 17 name brand fragrances. Now, I can't name them for reasons, but you can go and check it out yourself if you want to see. Okay, so getting a little deeper into this, what about using essential oils to make our own perfumes? Well, what are essential oils? Some of you may not really know, so just a quick explanation. Essential oils they're a component of plants like this flower. They're the volatile components of plants, meaning they easily evaporate into the air. So that's if you smell a flower or plant when you're going by, you're smelling the essential oils. So they're fragrant. And well, in the case of when they're essential oil on the shelf of the store, then they're concentrated extracts. They're much more concentrated than they were in the plant in the first place. How concentrated? Well, just to give you an idea, if you have a bottle of lemon essential oil, such as I'm showing you here, it would take approximately 150 lemon rinds just to make that one bottle. So you got to have that respect for what you're getting and think less is more. And it's also about safety, which I'll get into all of that as well. Another good example would be that 1 drop of peppermint essential oil would be the very approximate of how much you would get if you steeped 20 tea bags of peppermint at once. So it's a lot, it's concentrated. Now, when you're using essential oils for perfumes, they actually enter the body in two ways. One is that, now maybe not directly, the essential oil doesn't go all the way to the brain, but there's a scent signal that then makes its way to the brain through, transfers into electrical signals. So we know that scents affect our brain, especially this very primitive part of the brain called the amygdala. That is, it's very old in terms of evolution, and it can trigger emotions, often good ones. A smell can be, we can um, experience emotions, sometimes bad ones too, if the scent reminds you of something. And also, when you're inhaling it, it's going to go down to the lungs and rapidly enter the bloodstream. So it does actually enter the body when I'm talking about just when we inhale them. Uh, just a little bit about how they're made for those of you who might not know and be interested. Most of the essential oils that now carries, or essential oils in general, are made by steam distillation. So it's just adding steam, heats up the plants, and of course, those volatile components will evaporate, leaving the rest behind. And then they are cooled down so that they settle down and concentrate again. That's how most of them made. Some of them, like the very delicate ones, jasmine and rose, require solvents to extract them. If we didn't do it that way, then you might have to pay, $150, $200 for a tiny bottle. But those solvents are then removed from the final product. All of the citrus oils are made with a cold press, and just vanilla is made with carbon dioxide extraction. When it comes to quality of essential oils, there are some very standard types of tests. These are not all the tests that Dow does, but these are the two primary ones that really just act like a fingerprint. The fingerprint will tell us who we are, so we know one person from the other. So these tests are like a fingerprint. They show what is in it, what isn't in it, do we have the right plant part, and they're actually very transparently displayed at nowfoods.ca. You can see the results for every single essential oil. Just one thing that a lot of consumers come by, and which is misleading, that I want to point out, is you may or may not hear, especially if you keep searching about essential oils, the term therapeutic grade being used when it comes to describing some essential oils as a way of implying that these particular essential oils are better because they're therapeutic grade. And I just want to set the record straight for that tonight, that this is just a marketing term. Now, there is such a thing as therapeutic grade in general, but what it means is that there's a third party pharmacopoeia or a statutory organization that creates the standard monograph, it's called. They set these standards, and anyone who meets those standards can say they have a therapeutic grade. But in the essential oil world, there is no such third party or statutory organization. So this term has no bearing on quality. The quality or purity or safety of the product comes from those tests that I just showed you that have been done. All right, now we're getting into the art of perfuming. So just kind of relax and listen. You will get the recording. There is a handout for you as well. And you'll kind of slowly reveal the different things that you need to know all the way down to the end of the presentation. So if you're thinking, I don't understand something, I need to know something more, it will probably pop up eventually. Now, this is a piano, as you can see, but I'm using this to describe to you, when it comes to making perfumes, there is a sort of art to it. And that art is to blend different essential oils together that go together well. So if you've ever played a piano, or if you know what a chord is, there's certain notes that just go together well. And it's the same thing for perfumes and essential oils. There's a bottom note, a middle note, and an upper note, and played together or used together, it's called a bouquet. It just provides the best experience. So for perfuming, and I'm going to stress that you don't have to follow this formula, but if you're learning, you might as well know it. Once you know it, you can either use it or not use it, or kind of use it. But this is how it goes: that there are essential oils that are considered to be top notes, others middle notes, and others base notes. And the ideal perfume would be to combine top notes, middle notes, and base notes in this particular ratio. Some websites will have alternate that ratio a little bit, but by and large, the middle notes make up the bulk of that perfume, about half of it. And then you got about 30% in the top notes and 20% in the base notes. But as I said, you can completely ignore this when you get into it. So what does it mean for top notes? Top notes essential oils are the ones that really make a good first impression. They're the first ones you notice. They really stand out right away. That's the top notes. The middle note, as I said, makes up the bulk of the formula. It's the heart of the formula. It's not as, doesn't give that right away impression, but it's there and it's kind of core to your formula. And last, you have the base notes. They are a little more shy. They show up a little later. You don't notice them, but they really ground that formula, the nice base. Now you have a handout with all these links, so you don't have to worry about it. But one of them is for this document at nowfoods.ca, which will give you a list of all of our essential oils that are considered top notes, all of them that are middle notes, and all of them that are base notes, so that you can say, okay, I'm going to combine whatever top note you want with 50% of middle notes and with your base notes. And that just divides them up into describing what they are. You don't have to worry about that right now. I'm just going to take you through a few steps of looking at this in a different way. But that is there for you to download and print up. So who doesn't love flowers? And just as an example, this is from that chart, but just looking at it differently. Floral essential oils that coming from flowers tend to be either middle or top notes. Most of them are on the middle notes. Vanilla is an exception. It's very subtle. It's a base note. Don't have to memorize these, just purely for fun information. Now, citrus, it's going to be no surprise to you that all citrus are top notes, because if you buy an air freshener, it's very often has citrus in it, because if you want to freshen a room, you want to notice that right away. You want to make a strong impression and cover up whatever other smells are there. So all the citrus are the top notes. Spearmint, peppermint, so all the mints are also top notes. Another thing that I would say is fairly obvious, because they're often in toothpaste or any kind of breath freshener. And of course, you want that freshness to be noticeable right away. It's that first impression, top note. There's some medicinal essential oils that are top notes. You don't typically use these in perfumes, but you can use anything you want if you like it. It's all up to you. Most of what I would say, like the Italian herbs, these kind of green notes, are in the middle. We have myrrh, patchouli, and vetiver that are bottom notes. These are all, I guess, resins and similar substances. We have, I would think of these as a kind of like fall season warming spices, like pumpkin, I'm thinking. And all of these you can find in your kitchen: the cinnamon, clove, ginger, nutmeg. So these are all middle notes. And then most of the woodsy notes, think forest, are middle or bottom notes, kind of grounding, I think, of the forest, more subtle. All right, so that gives you an idea of what top, middle, and lower notes are. Now let's get into the creating the formula. Step one, so first thing you got to do is come up with a formula. And now what I'm showing you here and what's in your handout, just one very important thing to remember, which is on every slide here. These are ratios, not total amounts. So this recipe is not like 3 drops of grapefruit, 3 drops of ginger, no, that's drops. It is 3 parts grapefruit, 3 parts ginger. It's suggesting the ratios that are reflecting the 50% middle notes. So 3 plus 2 is 5. So, 5 parts in the middle, and then we've got the other parts. So if you're making a perfume from this, you don't have to use 3 drops. You can double that. You can go 6 drops, and then you'll double all of these. And if you double the whole formula, you'll keep the same ratios. So which I'll get to, you're going to adjust how many drops you end up using, depending on the concentration you want to make for that perfume. So it may be more drops than this or less drops than this. But that's the ratio. Here's another example. This is a sweet and spicy perfume, again, with just ratios. And I'm just showing you here that you don't have to follow the formula. In this case, we're not using a bottom note. We're just using top notes because maybe you really like orange, and a couple of middle notes. So it's going to just depend on your preference. So 4 parts sweet orange, 3 parts neroli, and 3 parts cardamom are the ratios. This will all become clear again as I go through. Here's a perfume I call Peace and Quiet. Just simple lavender and frankincense. In this case, we're skipping the middle notes again so I can demonstrate you don't have to follow the exact formula. Now I call this Thalia's Perfect Blend because it's perfect for me. This is something I make all the time. I actually have it here in my little spray bottle. I'm going to spray it on. I wish you could smell it. But for some reason, I'm obsessed with this formula. I love rose and jasmine. I love lime. I use it to clean a lot. And I love vanilla. So I just made a perfume with all my favorite scents. And, if you want to try it, you're welcome to. Calming and soothing and uplifting. So what I'm showing you here is this is a pre-blended formula called Power to Flowers that now carries. If you're intimidated by getting started, you can use a pre-mixed formula, provided you don't have the flexibility of in terms of like not all mixed formulas that you may go out and get may be safe to use on the skin. I'm going to get to that, but this one is, these are all quite gentle. So it's pre-mixed and ready to go. It's already blended in, top, middle, and lower notes because it's formulated that way. And therefore, you can just use this without combining your own essential oils. All right, so say that you invent a blend or you think of a blend, but how are you going to test it to know if you're going to like it? So that's what this part is about. Or you can just be bold and like just make it and see how it goes. But to get a little more sophisticated, we want to see it sounds good or seems good in your mind. How is it actually going to be? So how a perfume lands up smelling to you depends, one, on the three or on the formula that you combine and that you make up. Secondly, on your own body chemistry. Might not smell the same on somebody else as it does on you. And also apparently the age of the perfume. So when you make a perfume, if you're patient enough to wait a week or two, you might notice that it has a more complex or better smell over time. So these are the things that can affect it. Now, if you want to be, you know, really sophisticated about it, you can just online, I'm sure any way you can search, or you can just cut out pieces of paper to make your own little strips. And you can use these to test your combination. So you can see I have mine here. So all you do is you label the strips with each one the name of the essential oil that you're going to be trying in your formula. Add 1 or 2 drops onto the end of each one of these. So you've got all of those scents, and then you're going to wave it about 5 inches from your nose. Give you an idea of how all of those scents smell together, because that's what you want to know. But then, if you want to get, again, really sophisticated, smell it again the next day. You don't add any more drops because you want to see, how it smelt immediately, but you were noticing the top notes when you first smelled it more than the others because, as I mentioned, the top notes make that quick first impression, but the bottom notes are going to could take even up to a day to really be noticeable, and the middle notes a couple hours. So by smelling it the next day, you'll get a better idea of how it's going to be on you over a period of time. And then you can, even if you decide you like the combination on your strips, you can then add it to your wrists, and now you're testing it with your body chemistry, and wait 30 minutes, smell it immediately, smell it a few hours later, smell it the next day. That's if you really want to get into the art of it. But to be honest, when I made my first and favorite one, I didn't test anything. I just threw them all together and I love them, and I still keep making that same one. Now, what if you find a formula that you really love? So here's an example one. It's 2 parts grapefruit and 1 part vetiver, 1 part ginger, 1 part vanilla. And you know you want to make it again and again. So what you can do then is, get these, and I've got also online these tiny little glass bottles, and you can fill it up with your formula so that you can use it again and again. So how you would do that is, just depending on how much you want to add in, maybe you're going to add 10 times this, so 10 times 2, and you'll put 20 drops in there, and then 10 times 1, so that 10 drops of vetiver, 10 drops of ginger, and 10 drops of vanilla. So you're just keeping the same ratio. If you want to make more, you can go, 50 times 2. So put 100 drops of the grapefruit and 50, 50, 50, whatever you want. Then you'll just have this mixture in the correct ratio. And then when you're making your perfume, you can add however many drops you decide to that formula of your whole mixture, which I'll explain how you decide, how much you want to dilute it by as we get to the end. Okay, so now you've got your formula. Maybe you've made a little mixture. Let's say you decide you want to make a 3% perfume, 3% dilution perfume. And as I said, closer to the end, it will become clear what percentage you might want to choose. But let's say you want to make a 3% dilution. Here's a great resource at nowfoods.ca. Both of these are on the website. So this is a simpler one. You want to make a 3% dilution, but your container is 30 ml. And so that means you need to use 18 drops of your mixture that you have in order to make a 3% dilution. You're going to dilute it then with some other, a liquid or oil, which I'll get to. But that's how you make a 3% dilution, or you know how many drops to add. So you add 18 drops of your mixture, or if you haven't made a pre-mixture at all, then you're just going to put in 18 drops straight from your essential oil bottles. Maybe you'll put 9 of your middle note, and maybe you'll put a couple of your top notes and bottom notes, but it will add up to 18. If you want a bit more flexibility, you can use this on the website as well. So you'll select your measurement you want, maybe your bottles in ounces or milliliters. Then you'll enter the size of your bottle here. Maybe it's a big one, 250 ml. And your desired dilution, maybe you want to make a 5% dilution. Click on here and it will calculate exactly how many drops you need to add. So you don't have to do any math. You just need to know what percentage you want your perfume to be. Is it 3%? Is it 5%? And the size of your container, and you can find the amount of drops you need to add. So here's an example of some different size containers. I just showed you the one here that I use. And if, for example, we wanted to make a 3% dilution perfume, then this little container, you only need 3 drops total in order to get 3%. Whereas if we're using a larger container, you're going to have to use 36 drops of essential oil to make a 3% dilution. So the percentage is the same in all of these, but because the containers change in size, you need a different amount of drops in order to get that percentage. And you might just be upcycling some container you have at home, which may be bigger than these, so you can use those charts to calculate. Now, your essential oils have to be mixed or diluted into something. You can't put them straight on your skin. They could harm you. I stressed that at the beginning. They're very concentrated, so they must be diluted. That's what this slide is about. The best way to dilute essential oil, there's two ways that are great. One is in a high percentage of alcohol, because they really mix and disperse well. And the other is in any oil. Fat oil mixes very well with essential oils. What I'm showing you on the right here is, this is what happens if you drop essential oils into water. It's much like oil and water. It doesn't mix. You don't want to do that. because then you're going to get all the essential oil coming out at once in a big chunk on your skin. You need it to be mixed for safety and efficacy as well. So high alcohol or oil. Vegetable glycerin, these are things you might see online when it comes to mixing essential oils, like vegetable glycerin. It is partially effective. Vodka, so there's a lot of online recipes for perfumes that call for vodka because it's alcohol, but I'm just letting you know that it's not nearly as effective, as you need a higher percentage alcohol ideally. And water or witch hazel are no-nos, do not work. As you know, if you want to properly mix your perfume. It's one thing if you're putting essential oils in water and spraying it in your room and not on your body, not such a big deal, even though it doesn't work as well. But when it's on your skin, you want it to be properly mixed. And lastly, and you don't have to follow this, but let your essential oils mingle and mix like a fine wine. They are, supposed to be better over a little bit of time. Wait a week, wait 2 weeks. I never have. Maybe I haven't really noticed, but certainly you can play with that. Okay, so I'm going to now go into the details of how to make two different kinds of perfumes, an oil-based and an alcohol-based, because I said those are the two best ways. The oil is really simple. This is a great way to start. As I said, it can be any oil. I often use these two oils. Jojoba is technically it's a wax, and it's great for perfumes because it has an incredibly long shelf life. So if you're using a lot of expensive essential oils and you're making a big perfume, maybe you want to use jojoba oil. Both of these are great. You want something that doesn't have a strong scent. Obviously, you don't want a rancid oil from your sink that you're using to cook. You want something that has maybe a neutral smell and hopefully a good shelf life. These are both great options. Um, so that's your oil. And essentially, I didn't show you much more, but essentially, I'll give an example. If this was a, if this was a bottle you're using, you're going to put your drops of essential oil in the bottle. Maybe you've calculated you need 36, and you just fill up the rest with your oil of choice, and that's it. Your oil-based perfume is done. Most of the time, if I'm going to do something like that, I use the little roller bottle because it's just easy. You can roll it on with the oil, but you don't have to. So that's very simple to make. Alcohol-based perfume, a little bit more involved, but it's really just 3 ingredients. You need your alcohol, you need some water, preferably distilled. I've just used regular tap water, and your essential oil. So 3 ingredients, not that complicated. A little bit about the pros and cons of using alcohol if you're thinking of alcohol or oil. Well, the cons for alcohol is it's drying to the skin, which may not matter, but if you have a skin condition or something, then maybe any alcohol is drying and not a good idea. It does evaporate quickly, so in terms of the scent staying on your skin longer, if you use oils and they kind of sit there longer, the scent may last longer. And they're less available in terms of getting this very, kind of alcohol that's a high percentage. Of course, vodka is easy to get, but I'm going to show you what I use. And there's many pros to alcohol. It helps preserve, so like bacteria won't grow. It solubilizes, so it's great to mix the essential oils. It stabilizes the aroma over time. And it improves silage, which is the trail that diffuses as you move. So if you have perfume on, it kind of gives off this trail. I really like to make my perfumes with alcohol, and I'll show you what I use. So this is just a list of different kinds of alcohol out there that are best, a high percentage, that because as I said, vodka is not as good, but I've listed in here isopropyl alcohol. Um, that's what I use. And even though I've read some things online saying, it doesn't have a nice scent to it, it kind of maybe overpowers the perfume. I haven't found any problem with it with mine, and it's readily available. in any drugstore, very cheap, high percentage. So that's what I would use, especially if you're starting out, before worrying about trying to look for these other types. Because for the other types, I think you have to go to a like in Ontario where I live, we have the LCBOs where you get alcohol. I'd have to write a special letter or get permission, and they'd have to order these high proof alcohols for me. They don't just sell them. Here's I'm just showing you a demonstration that I did for myself and to show you. So if you put, and I used blue chamomile here because it's just easier to see, you can see if I add the essential oil into isopropyl alcohol, it's perfectly mixed. But if I used vodka, because it's a lower proof, you can see it's not perfectly mixed, so that you can just visually see the difference. And this, by the way, is not pure alcohol. I took 1 part isopropyl alcohol to 2 parts water, just to show you that it still worked better than with, I think this is pure vodka. All right, so now all about the dilution, because I've told you, what to do if you want to do a 3% dilution, but how do you know how much to dilute your perfumes? So how much we dilute an essential oil will depend on a number of things. One, probably the most important factor, is the type of essential oil. I will provide all the details coming up, but the type of essential oil. So I'll give the example of 2 extremes. Lavender is so gentle, and you can put pretty much a very high concentrations on your skin, and most people will be fine. Whereas cinnamon is the polar opposite, easily irritating to the skin, and I've had bad experiences. Also depends on the frequency of application. If you're putting on your perfume, on over and over again, that might make a difference. If you have sensitive skin, the body part, so we tend to be more careful with what we put on our face and our neck than on our, other parts of the body, and surface area, which doesn't really apply much with perfumes. You're not usually putting them all over the body and covering a lot of surface area. But those kind of things can affect how dilute you want something in general when it comes to making things with essential oils. We're talking about perfumes today, so that's just, in a small area. So back to, like, sort of at the beginning, I showed you that the different kinds of scents that we use in the body are very similar in ingredient, but what they change in is the concentration of the actual scent. So technically a perfume would have 20 to 30% of a concentration. So if we're duplicating that with essential oils, then we would make that concentration 20 to 30% of essential oils. And you will see, if you go looking online for recipes, people telling you about their recipes they suggest for essential oils to make perfumes, they often do suggest these higher percentages. I'm just cautioning you to be careful that that person knows what they're doing, seems to have some kind of, like a good knowledge, because, again, if you did 20 to 30% of cinnamon in a perfume, no matter how kind of resilient your skin is, even if you're not sensitive, you're probably going to really cause harm. So either start in the lower amounts or pay attention to the details I'm going to show you following, or just make sure that this person seems to know what they're doing in this with this formula. Now, if you want to make an alcohol-based perfume, this is the general ratio. It's going to be about 75% alcohol, so 3/4 of the container will be alcohol. The rest is water, which is going to be, about 25%. I just put 22% here because you need a little bit of space for the essential oils. So you'll add your essential oils first at the bottom. And then, I usually just eyeball it, and I put in about this much alcohol. It's going to be my isopropyl alcohol, then a little bit of tap water, because I don't use the distilled, but I'm just giving you like the standard, the ideal standard. And that works really well to mix the essential oils. So that's kind of the basic ratio I'd suggest. Now this is from, it's an online website. The Tisserand Institute is kind of the institute that sets guidelines for safety for essential oils. So I just thought I would include this because they give basic information about what kind of dilution might you want to use depending on what part of the body. So if you're putting something on the face with essential oils, you're usually going for the lower dilution of 0.2 to 1.5%. If you're doing a body massage, so you're covering a lot of area, it'll be a bit higher. If you're treating something acute, making something for pain or wound, it's between 5 and 20. It's very ballpark, but they don't put anything here about perfumes. So that's, something that I'm talking about tonight. That's just a general idea, but as I said, depends what you're using, because if it's lavender or cinnamon. So I created this for you, and this is it's not I don't haven't included every essential oil you might ever come across here, but it's all the ones at Now that the Now brand has. So there's plenty here. So what this is showing is going to be very useful for you is what are the maximum safe dilutions for each of these essential oils. In other words, it describes the maximum percentage dilution that can be used before risk of harm is reached for most people. And as I said, perfumes range from 1 to 30%. So all of these essential oils here, which will be great ones to start with, they don't have any maximum dilution. They haven't been established because they're very gentle. They still need to be diluted. Essential oils always need to be diluted, but there's no maximum. So that just means they're very safe. Some people even use lavender directly on the skin without diluting. There's different schools of thought, but in general, these are very safe. So you'll be probably quite fine to start making perfumes with these, and may not have to worry about if you're making a 30% dilution or 5%. There's other ones here that have a maximum that are still pretty high. Rosemary, you can use it at maximum 16%. So if you're making a 10% dilution perfume, you're probably okay. Just gives you an idea. But then there's these ones that we got to be more careful with. And so, if you decide to make a 30% dilution perfume and you're putting some of these in at, depending on, because you're mixing them with other ones, but at 10% of your formula, so you're going to be in trouble. So that's why this is good to have. And, you maybe use this as a double check when you're looking at a recipe online to see, does this kind of jive? Are they using one of these more problematic ones in high amounts? So just be careful. Use common sense. Oh boy, I didn't realize I got to the end so quickly. So I'm doing for my time. So here you have this as a handout as well. Here are links to help get you started. This is going to be very helpful for you. We have, I think these are all on the Now website. We have a link to just general information on perfuming. I think it's going to have that picture that I showed you at the beginning of the different notes of our essential oils, so that you can print that up, look at it, and go, okay, I want to choose this top note, these middle notes, and these bottom notes, and test it out. It has a link to the calculator, so you can pick your percentage. You're going to do a 3% and your container and figure out exactly how many drops you need. If you want to know a little bit more about what carrier oil do you want to use, I showed you jojoba and coconut, but maybe you want to look at some others. There's a chart there that will describe different ones that may be helpful for different skin types and such. Information about essential oils. There's a video on Now quality if you want to see. It's quite amazing to look in our labs and see the extensive testing we do. Here's an essential oil attributes chart if you want to know different things about different essential oils. What are their personalities? A few more things on Now quality and general facts about essential oils, facts and questions. And that brings me to the end. Don't disappear yet, though. We have a prize and answering questions, but I want to thank you so much for attending thus far. And I'm going to show you here. This is the lovely gift that Nature's Fair has prepared for one lucky person. And so what I would love you to do is to answer this question that I have here in the chat. And we're going to pick somebody who's answering this question to win this prize. And the question is, what was your favorite thing about tonight's event? It can be your favorite thing that you learned or anything you want. And just go enter it into the chat. Hi, I was wondering where you were.
Hello, how you doing?
Good. I don't know if people out there know, but well, I think I mentioned I'm in Toronto, so right now it's 11:48. I'm usually asleep
It's pretty
at
late.
10, so I'm pretty proud of myself. You were correct.
You should
I'm
be.
on adrenaline, so I feel good.
It was supposed to be a secret, but you're also wearing your party pants, so.
Oh, yes. I could lift my leg up.
Exactly. Oh, we've got a lot of comments coming in. Let's give them a few
Good.
more minutes,
Gonna get a
and then I'll
score,
pick a
you?
winner. And while all these comments are coming in, I do have a couple questions that I see.
Great.
Let me go. Let's see here. The first question was just regular tap water for dilution. Do you recommend it at all, or does it add to add impurities?
Oh, that's a really good question. I suppose obviously it's possible with ordinary tap water that there may be some impurities. So if you're concerned, and if you're making a really tiny perfume like this, and you're concerned, you can get the distilled water. I mean, of course, in water we do have bacteria and other things. So this is not like buying a commercial perfume. So if you're worried, just use it distilled. I never have. I'm not selling them. I'm not making huge batches. I use it up pretty quickly, so I don't worry. But it is possible, of course, to have bacteria growing in anything you make at home, even your own cleaning products. So just use the distilled water and you can even boil it first, or you can boil your tap water and let it cool for your perfume. That's another idea.
Yeah, great tip.
Yeah.
I got another question coming in. What is the typical shelf life of DIY perfumes? Great question.
That is a great question. Unfortunately, I don't know that because we would have to test, the stability of, what you made. So, I can only tell you some things that it might depend on, but I couldn't tell you the actual shelf life. Like essential oils, the shelf life of general essential oils can range from, for some of them, 1 to 2 years, to others up to 10 years. And so if you've kept them well and you've kept your bottles closed and kept them in a good place, then they may be able to last quite a bit. But once you take them out of the bottle and start making your perfume, they get exposed to air, and depends on your oil as well. So I can't say that, and I don't want to make anything up. But again, as long as you're
Better
not
safe.
selling them, yeah, if you start selling them and making them, if you're kind of concerned more about stability, that's a whole other level of knowledge that certainly I am not the person to tell you about. But I do know that in that case, if you're really worried about stability, people who are making perfumes at home, which are usually for synthetic scents, will buy stabilizers and preservatives and add them into their perfumes. And if that's something you want to look into, you can. But for me, I just like to make them natural, and I'm just using it for myself, and it's just, each one's going to last a few months, so I'm not worried about the stability from that perspective. But if I
Gotcha.
was making large batches and selling them, yeah, then you kind of have to be more careful.
Different
So
story.
yeah, just like
Um,
any DIY stuff you make at home, I don't hear about people dropping dead from their own face masks or shampoos or whatever it is that you make. So, I think it's fairly safe. It's a great question. I just can't give you a number, unfortunately.
That's all right. Along the same lines of that question, is it with shelf life? Is there a difference between alcohol versus oil-based perfumes? Is one going to last longer than the other?
Um, I would think alcohol, because it's 99% alcohol, is such a strong preservative. So I think that one would last longer, but it is mixed with water. So I would say the alcohol. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. I'm combing through to see if we have any more. Wow, we got a lot
These
of
are such great
responses.
questions.
I know. Yeah.
If you want to pay, you can make a perfume and send it to a lab for a stability test, then you'll get a perfect answer and it will cost you a lot.
All right. I don't see any other questions, so I'm going to randomly select somebody for this amazing gift
Gosh,
basket
no
that
easy
I've been
questions.
staring at it. So we just got a little random selection from the list of attendees that are on, and Miss Wendy Spicer. Great name. How's that?
That is a
Actually,
great name.
it's actually a perfect winner
Congratulations,
for
Wendy.
this. And
Yes,
let me
she
just
deserved it.
double check. Let me just double check to make sure we don't have any other questions. Last chance for anybody that attended. Do we have any questions for Thalia? Oh, I'm going to probably pronounce this wrong, but Janet has asked, how long does jojoba carrier keep?
Oh, jojoba.
Yeah, jojoba. I knew I was going to do it wrong. That's why you're the expert.
Um, Gosh, I wish I had a bottle in front of me because I could check the best before date. I know it's good for a few years. It has if not more, it lasts for long, but it's different, I guess, once you're taking it out and making something and maybe, applying it to your skin, getting your finger in it. So it's not the same as it's just sitting on the shelf. But jojoba, I mean, I've had a couple bottles for many years and it smells the same. It's very stable. It's a wax. So it is very stable, but just can't give you a number because again, it depends on handling and where it is and how often it's open and what you're mixing with it and all that. So um, yeah, but they're stable. I think to again, if you're just thinking of making something at home for yourself and using it within a few months, 3 months, 4 months, I I wouldn't worry about those things, unless maybe you're, I don't know, very immune compromised or have some reason to really worry about things like that. Um, but I'm suspecting, and I'm not sure if these questions are coming from people who are interested in making them kind of more commercially or in batches. In that case, you need to um, do some research. That's a whole other level. This is kind of more, you know, just making things at home, kind of that you enjoy type of level.
Got you. All right, we do have one more
Yes.
question coming in here. Any thoughts for some good essential oils to use for pet odors?
For pet odors.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not sure if this person is implying that they want to spray, like make a perfume to spray on their pet. Because I would just say, I would not use essential oils to spray on a pet. There are, and I don't have them here, there are some links I have to, there's a few websites online that have a lot of, kind of safety information about pets and essential oils and which ones you definitely don't want to. But cats are very sensitive and can react a lot to essential oils. So I wouldn't. I mean, I'm not saying it is impossible that there's something out there or maybe a pre-made product, but I'd be careful. And since I'm not a kind of specialist in essential oils and pets, I would just say don't make a perfume for your pet unless it's advised by someone who works with pets and knows them well. I think there are probably safer ways to deodorize your animals, like such as a bath, or I don't know if you can use baking soda on a pet, but I wouldn't use essential oils. I'd be really careful about with pets and essential oils.
That's great. She has
Yeah.
responded and said that it's for her carpets to get the odor out of her carpets.
I would go with baking soda. Yeah,
All
that's a
right.
good baking soda, um, or
Classic.
baking powder. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can put maybe some lavender mixed in that powder and put it on the carpet, leave it there for a few hours, make sure the pets are not around to come close to it, and then vacuum it up. But yeah, that's what I would do. And I suppose you can use some other essential oil, but lavender is just one that came to my mind. As long as, again, the pet's not coming in there and around it. But definitely the baking powder is kind of the classic for the removing the odors.
Excellent. Well, thank you.
Yes.
Teresa
Yeah.
says, "Don't worry, she's not going to put the oil on her pets."
Okay. I wasn't
That's
sure.
good.
Okay. I wasn't sure. Yes.
All right, folks. Last chance. Any more questions for Talia? It doesn't appear so. So I just want to
Well,
thank
letting me
you.
off
And
easy.
right, I know. I mean, I've got some questions in my mind if you want.
You can go ahead. I don't mind. I'm
No, I
awake
think that
now.
was amazing. You know what? Your presentation was incredible, and I've learned so much. And honestly, I've been sitting here writing a Christmas list of everyone's getting homemade perfumes for Christmas this year.
Oh, that's lovely. I can't wait. Please send me a picture of them
I
or an
will for sure.
update. Yes.
Well, so Miss Wendy Spicer, I'll send you an email on how to collect your prize. And I just want to thank Talia and Now for this great presentation. It's always amazing working with this group. And for the folks that have been watching, I hope you head on over to our stores and check out their products because they really do have an amazing line.
Thank you. And thanks for being a great host. And I look forward
No
to the
problem.
next time.
All right, take care, everybody. Have a good evening.
Bye, everyone.